Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Friday. Happy schedule day to all who celebrate. We'll break down all 82 games next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday. No matter how or where you get your podcast, this one's always free. It is never, ever, ever behind a paywall. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 25,000 subscribers are getting ready to talk about the upcoming season, the schedule dropping on Thursday. Also, they're very excited to welcome Andy back to the show after a well-earned break. The judge very generously agreeing to release him with time served, which we appreciate, just to get the show back on the rails. So welcome back, Andy. Schedule day, otherwise known as everyone cribbed the work of Mike Trudell over at Lakers.com day. That's certainly how I handle it every year. It is one of the strangest holidays, I think, in all of the NBA, because on the one hand, it's like it's a big deal, but on the other hand, it's like it's a lot of information that you just can't do much with for a little while. And by October, most of our observances about the 82 game release in August can feel out of date, but it's still fun.
I actually disagree with that. I actually think that there's a lot that can be gleaned from it. First of all, you just get the reinforcement looking at the Lakers schedule of just how tough it is to be in the West.
I want when we get to observe like things, but you can get to that. Like I was looking for one of the things, where are the easy stretches, where are the really tough stretches? I couldn't. I mean, there are some that are a little easier than others, but there's never like a sustained thing where you get like, ooh, that's like 8 games, where like that's like 7 really bad teams. Like it's hard to find those in the schedule because at some point you're going to play a Western Conference team, and aside from a couple of them, they're all good.
Yeah, I mean, it's as the Lakers go from mid-August to October, training camp opens, and maybe Rob Pelinka ends up making a move. Maybe they don't. I think the general consensus is the roster is as it's going to be in the next month and a half. But at the same time, the Lakers tend to make moves when nobody's expecting them. So perhaps they are working in silence. But either way, I think it's actually pretty. I understand that to some degree you're left with just information, and it's a blank slate in a lot of ways. Like you don't know which teams are going to be overperforming, underperforming, whatever.
That's really what I'm getting at. Like, it's stretches with the Grizzlies last year. Be like, oh man, that's gonna be tough. And like, then you're looking forward to them about 2 weeks into the year.
But again, though, I do think that once you start peeling back some of the layers of the schedule, it gives you a pretty good idea of not just obviously what lies ahead on a game-to-game basis for the Lakers, but just how the season itself may discover its own ebbs and flows and the periods that you feel like you have to capitalize on because in a couple weeks, oh my God, bleep's about to get real, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I will say the biggest thing you look at, I think, to me with the schedule that actually you could say can be pretty impactful. Like you said, it's first 10 games of the year, first 20 games of the year, home and road splits, stuff like that. The Lakers had a really, really road heavy schedule last year that I do think hurt them. It's a lot more even this year over the first 20 games, which should make a difference. I think you can look at that kind of thing. You can look at back-to-backs, which dropped from 15 to 13 this year. Their travel, despite being in LA, is right basically at league average. Again, thanks to Mike Trudell for doing the math there. So stuff like that, I think, makes a difference to where you can look at it and say, there aren't a lot of landmines that the league built into the schedule that are going to make a hard thing even harder, where you instead of 13 back-to-backs, you have 18 or some ridiculous number like that. So in that sense, I think the Lakers schedule is kind of right down the middle. It's not going to hurt them, which I think in turn kind of helps them.
Yeah, that is one of the things that jumped out at me is I didn't, other than one stretch in particular, and we'll get into it as we start getting into, I guess, some of the specifics of it, but outside of one stretch in particular, there was nothing that really jumped out at me as like, holy hell, like,
Right.
that's a little bit cruel. We talked before about how you can't have an easy schedule in the West. Like it's not possible. There's only one team right now, Portland, that is, I think, from the beginning of this season, definitively in the Cooper flag sweepstakes.
Yeah.
Utah,
they're genuinely garbage. Utah, I think, will start off okay and then decide when to pull the plug.
Right. They may eventually make their move and, start selling off parts that are not named Laurie or Markkanen. But for the time being, they're a hair too good to be in that bottom tier of the NBA. And then everyone else, including the Spurs, figure to be part of either the play-in or playoff chase. But then also, like, looking around, you start realizing with the Lakers in terms of breaks. And first of all, their division is, I think, the weakest of the three in the West. Like, there are no bad teams in the Pacific, but nobody for the time being, I think, is earmarked as a consensus first-round home court advantage team, much less a front-running contender. Like, I think Phoenix is considered by most to be the best team in the Pacific, but they're mostly what I've seen is like a preseason 5 or 6 seed, and that's 4 of the teams that they play in the West 4 times. And then Jovan Buha, part of his Buha's Block podcast that dropped maybe a couple hours before we recorded this, he noted how the Lakers play Denver, but also Portland, Utah, and San Antonio 4 times among Western Conference teams, but only 3 times against the Thunder, Timberwolves, Mavericks, Grizzlies, and Pelicans and Rockets, at least until things could change a little bit when we find out exactly how the IST breaks down as it gets deeper along. But, OKC is the consensus number 1 seed in the West. Dallas and Minnesota went to the Western Conference Finals last year. So the Lakers caught a bit of a break in terms of the overall balance of teams that they play in the West. Like, it could be worse than they have it.
Yeah. Quick reminder that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. There are some interesting quirks in this schedule. Like, the Lakers play Phoenix 3 times, basically by Thanksgiving. And that's strange. They have what could be a very pivotal and difficult, rare, it's not a back-to-back, but it's a 2-game away stand in Oklahoma City right near the end of the season. So if Oklahoma City, let's say, is fighting for a 1 seed or a 2 seed or something like that, the Lakers in early April have to play back-to-back games in Oklahoma City and then turn around and go to Dallas, which are, the Mavericks obviously could also be
they're at least not literally back-to-back, but they are 2 games in a row.
It's April 6th and April 8th, but both games are on the road in Oklahoma City, and then they turn around on April 9th, and that one is April 8th to April 9th is a back-to-back against Dallas, and then at home against Houston. So, they play teams that you would think will be playing for something or other. Memphis should be in the mix, Houston, Golden State, New Orleans, those 2 games against Oklahoma City I mentioned, Dallas, Houston. So the end of the season, not a lot of cupcakes, but a lot of potentially meaningful games for both sides. We'll keep breaking this thing down. Look forward to a couple dates that really stand out for a variety of reasons, and we'll do that next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. Some of my favorite memories growing up in St. Louis as a kid was going to Cardinal games in the summer, hanging out with my friends, watching Ozzie Smith, Willie McGee, Jose Oquendo, those 80s Cardinals. And some of my favorite summer memories as an adult are in LA at Dodger Stadium with my friends. And if I want tickets to a ball game, I go to Game Time. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. The prices on the Game Time app go down as you get closer to the first pitch. The Game Time app is easy to browse through to see the upcoming games. They got flash deals where you save even more on selected seats ahead of the game. Also, zone deals where you save extra by choosing a section and then letting Game Time choose the seats. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
So one night I'm really looking forward to, as we'll get back into the sort of the strategy and good breaks and bad breaks and whatever it might be that are based on this schedule, is the Michael Cooper retirement ceremony. That's going to be on jersey retirement. That's going to be on January 13th at home, obviously. I'll tell you why I like this one. Like, the Lakers have had a lot of jersey retirements and all these other things, but it's been Powell, it's been Kobe, it's been Shaq, it's been, there's Jamal Wilkes in there and some others. But, I feel like Coop is one of those guys that in any other situation, any other franchise, other than, I guess, maybe the Celtics, I don't know how they handle these things, would have already had his jersey retired. Like the Clippers would have retired Michael Cooper's jersey for this, every other team. And he was just held back by this Hall of Fame requirement. And guys like that, I think, these role players on these title winning teams who really were like lifers with the Lakers and remain lifers with the Lakers, hold a different place for fans than even a Pau Gasol or, like LeBron when he eventually gets his jersey retired, and he will. It's a different thing with Michael Cooper. It's a different energy. It's a different type of appreciation. And I just think it's going to be really exciting for fans. And the outpouring from players to see that happen, it's just going to be so much fun. I mean, if you can pick a night to be in the building, January 13th is a good one.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And you mentioned Cooper as a role player, which he was, but he was also an elite role player. Like he was a role player that in a lot of ways is the exception that proves the rule in terms of getting into the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best defenders of his or any other era. I also think it's thematically apropos that you're going to be seeing his jersey go up in the rafters on a night where the Lakers are playing the Spurs, and presumably / hopefully it's a showdown between two defensive player of the year frontrunners in Anthony Davis and Victor Wembanyama. I mean, right now our friends at FanDuel have Wembanyama not just as the frontrunner for defensive player of the year, but last I looked, like, you got to bet like $200 to win 100. Like,
you got to bet like $200 to win like 12. It's like, it's insane. Wemby has, like, the Spurs would have to do some beyond predictions type things to get him in the MVP conversation. But that said, if let's say the Spurs are 41-41 this year, Wemby's going to get a lot of MVP consideration. There's just because they're not going to be 41-41 without him doing some really incredible stuff. He is in the top 10 for odds for MVP, the odds-on favorite for defensive player of the year, and also one of, I think, either the
most improved player.
Yeah, first or second or third for most improved player. So like there's a legitimate postseason hardware parlay that you can play with Victor Wembanyama that is stunning in terms of a good way of framing how good he is. I should say, like, the reason that Cooper is, we can move on to other things, but like Cooper is a role player because people consider defense to be a role, as opposed, if he scored 28 points a game, 30 points a game, but never played defense, nobody would call him a role player. So it's really more about how we think about defense as much as anything.
Yeah. And then that game is in the middle of January. And I marked January as, relatively speaking, I think the easiest month for the Lakers. You got Portland and then Atlanta back to back. These are both home games, but back to back against the Hawks. you should be able to handle that business. Then you go to Houston, go to Dallas, then the longest home stretch of the year, I believe, hosting Charlotte, then 2 games in a row against the Spurs, neither of which are back-to-back. Miami, Brooklyn, then at Clippers, which is no travel, hosting the Wizards, hosting the Celtics. So at that point, you're going from January 9th to January 19th without leaving LA. Then you go up north to the Bay Area, take on the Warriors, still not leaving California, then go on the road at Hornets, at Sixers, that's a back-to-back, then at Wizards, and then February opens on the road against the Knicks. So I think, again, there's no such thing as a truly easy month or truly easy pocket just because the West doesn't allow it. Right. But that to me is a fairly winnable, relatively easy month for the Lakers.
And it comes on the heels of probably their most difficult month because December is their most road heavy. If you want to sort of factor the last few days of November into the December schedule, they go on the road on the 26th to play that last of those 3 games I mentioned against the Suns, and they're not on the road until Christmas, but they are on the road most of the time until Christmas. And so when they finally come back to kick off, finish December and start the new year, it's a winnable stretch. I mean, I think the Lakers need to, and we say this every year, obviously, but the start is really important. And while it starts with 3 at home and then 5 on the road and then 3 more at home and then 2, it's still not that incredibly imbalanced early season schedule that they had last year. And by the way, 2 of those games that they play on the road are against Toronto and Detroit. So, yes, it's a long road stretch, but it's early in the season and those are not great teams. If there's an advantage to not signing anyone in the off season, to having exactly the same team come back this year versus last year, except for Dalton Connect instead of Taurean Prince. From a functional standpoint, that is really the only difference in the rotation. If there's an advantage to that, it is that JJ Redick can come out of the gate playing the starting lineup that won 18 of 24 to finish the season last year. Once Rui got back into the starting lineup with Reeves and Russell and LeBron and AD, I had Anthony Irwin on. He made a case for bringing Russell off the bench, and I didn't agree with him, and I don't think they're going to do that. But
I don't think he made a particularly compelling case, to be honest.
I happen to agree with you. I disagreed with him when he said that. There's a lot about it I don't think makes a lot of sense. But either way, this is one of the advantages that they have. You have a new coach in JJ Redick. It makes sense to me, at least, to lean into the continuity that, by the way, they didn't lean into last year. They had an opportunity, sort of, because injuries did play a role, but they never really leaned into that last year. It makes sense to me if you're Redick to be able to go back, take the guys who are comfortable playing with each other, who showed that they could win, where you have all this tape that you can use from last year, and start the season that way. I think that's what they'll end up doing, and hopefully it's to their advantage.
Well, it's what they should be doing, and it's what I hope that they do. But we've also seen this team a few years in a row basically fritter away training camp and fritter away preseason games, often sitting their stars. I think not really. Last year they were learning a brand new offense, so you figured, okay, they're going to this 5-out system. Clearly, they're going to at least try to get these guys on the court together more often, even if not for entire games, just so they get the live reps against opponents. It's not what happened. Anthony Davis talked after winning the gold about how, managing him and LeBron after the Olympic run could mean pacing a little bit early on, even into the regular season, but also training camp and preseason, which I got to be honest, I think is a real mistake and wasted opportunity. I mean, forget what they need to learn playing with each other in Redick's system. Redick has to get the reps coaching these guys. So I I do not fault or criticize LeBron or AD for going to play for Team USA. We've talked about this before. As much as I would prefer those guys didn't for selfish reasons as a Laker fan, I respect them doing it. But with all additional due respect, this is your day job, guys. Like,
yeah, I mean, this is the concern. This is the worry that you have about guys going to do it, and it's not that they're wrong. It's just that they're.
no.
I mean, look, Austin Reeves, who admittedly had not done something like that before, and different kind of player and all that stuff. He was clearly affected by that run, and it was compounded, I think, by Reeves playing the load that he did the year before, which was very new for him. He hit the wall in the middle of the year, and then had to kind of work through it, and then to turn around and go right back to the Team USA and then and USA basketball and have that experience come back.
He hit the wall a bit during the playoffs in the 2023 Western Conference.
Yeah, it's just I don't know if that means LeBron and AD are going to have the same issues. They're a little more familiar with it. They've had more seasons where they've played more miles, which in this case is probably helpful. But we have tangible proof that it can impact players. Because it happened last year. A couple more notes about the schedule, and one, you mentioned one wrinkle that I think is really interesting about this season and how it impacted LA's schedule. We'll get to it next.
Locked On Lakers is brought to you by FanDuel. We all love sports. We love them so much. We never want the sports to stop, but it's the summertime. You get fewer leagues, fewer games. The sports do not sports like we want them to. But FanDuel lets you, lets me, lets everyone keep the sports going whenever we want. All you got to do is just open up the app, dream up bets anytime in your mood, and there are options. Baseball's still going on, WNBA, and you can actually look ahead to the upcoming 2024-2025 NBA season. We know the schedule, and you can take a look at some of those odds. As of this recording, the Lakers are 35-1 to win the title. Anthony Davis, 150-1 for MVP, also 25-1 for Defensive Player of the Year. Dalton Knecht, 10-1 for Rookie of the Year. Max Christie, 150-1 for Most Improved Player. And this summer, FanDuel hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
So you mentioned one of the sort of low key impacts on the Lakers schedule is that the fact that they are only sharing the building now for a major sports league type thing with one team now instead of two. The Kings, obviously Lakers have to work around, or the Kings really have to work around the Lakers, but the Lakers,
damn right,
and the Lakers and Clippers. And not the Lakers, the Clippers were always the team that had to be picking up the scraps in the set, but it's just easier.
Damn right.
It is. Well, yeah, but it's just easiest to be, in a building. You have more dates available to you when you don't have a third team in there playing the same sport. So the Clippers will open up the Intuit Dome. They did it on Thursday for a Bruno Mars concert. And apparently the app didn't quite work. There were some hiccups in the beautiful building of Steve Ballmer. But either way, the Clippers are out of the Crypto.com arena, which will make life a little easier for the Lakers.
They are still, though, in the jokes writing themselves business because per tweet from our friend Law Murray, covers the Clippers for The Athletic. We're hoping to have Law on over the next week or so. Tweeted out a picture holding a ring that says Intuit Dome with Ring Night written next to it. I mean, it's as if the goal of Steve Ballmer and the Intuit Brain Trust was to create ways to get clowned on. Just hand out a souvenir, a memento of what I imagine is legitimately going to be an incredible building and a great fan experience. No shade. I imagine this arena will be awesome. Give out a momentum, literally anything that is not a ring, anything. Give out necklaces, give out, I don't know, like a snow globe with an Intuit dome
Toilets.
inside it. Give
everybody a toilet.
Everyone in the audience a Bemis that they take home with them. Like anything but a ring. Come on, guys. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things. Like, I get what Ballmer's getting at, and he definitely has strong, like, I don't care about people making fun of me.
Yes,
energy.
he does, because he wouldn't have been covering up those banners for years. You're damn right he cares about what people think.
But here's the thing: if that's it's good, because he's going to be, we're going to make fun of him for this. See,
although they are saving money on the guy whose job it was to cover those banners, like they don't have to pay that guy anymore.
It's true. Who's going to wear it? Like, what do you do with that? What do you do with your Intuit Dome ring from the Bruno Mars concert? I don't know what you do with that. Like, unless it's made out of real gold and actually has like real diamonds, and it's like some sort of stealth move by Jason of Beverly Hills, like, and you get home and you're like, oh my God, this thing is real. Which I know he's rich. He's not that rich. What do you do with
if
that?
That's the play. Give out any other kind of jewelry, anything.
Just give it. I would give everybody a gold bar worth the same amount with Intuit Dome stamped on it.
I mean, give out some kind of anklet. I don't care, but like, that's just asking to be made fun of.
At least they didn't do it on opening night for the Clippers.
Yeah,
I mean, that would you admit it. That would have been worse.
Yes, I suppose that would have been worse. Nobody considers the Bruno Mars concert to be a championship. So I guess in that sense, they did avoid the absolute worst, the worst giveaway possible. Yes.
Yeah, see, I like to look. I'm an optimist by nature.
So
let me ask you a quick question, though.
Okay.
What? Over the first 20 games, like the Lakers' last couple seasons have really been plagued by bad starts, like really trying to climb out of holes for the last couple of seasons. And understanding that even with the continuity that I talked about, there's still, is a learning curve because you got a new coach. If the goal is to finish in the top 6, what do you think is what do you need to be after 20 games to avoid having to do what they've done in the last couple of seasons, which is play with their hair on fire, every game being basically a must win, because if you don't win, you could drop to 9th or 10th in a heartbeat. What do you got to be, do you think, in the first 20 games to keep that number 6 and up a viable possibility?
I think you got to be at least 3 or 4 games above 500. Something like that. I think you're keeping a reasonably good pace. For example, last year they were 3 games, I believe, above 500 after the first 20 games, or 2 games above. They were 11-9 after the first 20. Then they quickly went to 5 games above 500. They were 15-10 after the first 25. The problem is that period after the IST completely kicked their ass, and things really fell apart. And I think it overshadowed how they didn't come out of the gates blazing, but they didn't come out terrible either.
It was worse the year before. It was definitely worse the year before. What were they, like 2-10 or something like that? Something absurd.
Yeah, I like the opening 10 games. I think if they were 6-4, that would be fine. It may not be inspiring, but I don't think that would be problematic either. I mean, it's not an easy opening 10 games.
No, but what I think is just, it's these little markers. If the Lakers can avoid, it's not even about like dominating the league. Sure, you can do that. It's avoiding the things that chip away at your margins, and being 2 games under 500 or 4 games under 500 after 20 or whatever it might be, or finding yourself in that group of teams that are decidedly in the 7, 8, 9, 10 range rather than the 4, 5, 6, 7 range. Those are the things that are going to make it so you are draining your playoff battery before you get there. Where you kind of can't, to whatever extent you're able, kind of moderate your season in a way that allows you to maximize LeBron, maximize AD, and have them be at whatever the freshest they can be is. It's not going to be that if they have to win, 8 of their last 12 just to make sure they get in. Like, that's not going to work. So 6-4, 3 or 4 games over 500 after 20. Every 10 games you play, are you 2 games over 500? Like, that's 600 baseball, 600 basketball. It's a pretty good record. But like, I think it matters how they get to the final winning percentage as much as it matters what that final winning percentage is.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I did notice in going through the schedule, and we mentioned before, the learning curve that everybody expects for JJ Redick, first time coach of any kind, and it's also a staff that has not worked together before. By my count, going through the schedule, may not be perfect, but it's, I think, pretty close. There are 10 occasions where the Lakers play the same opponent twice within a week, and then one other time where they play the same opponent twice in 10 days.
Yeah.
And then breaking that down a little bit further, in addition to playing the Suns specifically twice within a week, they'll play the Suns a total of 3 times in the opening month, and they'll play Sacramento 3 times over 9 days in December, and then all 4 of the games before 2024 ends. And I think for an inexperienced coach with Redick and a staff that's going to be learning how they work with each other, how they go about scouting, building up their own information systems, workflow, divvying up responsibilities, scouting, all that stuff, how they relay everything to the players, developing that kind of communication. Having that many repeat immediate opponents, I think, could create a familiarity that could be really useful for bridging that learning gap for Redick and that whole crew.
It gives them chances to make adjustments quickly.
Yeah.
They learn from the game before, without a month and a half or 2 months going by where, yes, it's the same team. We can look at what we did, but that game, 2 guys were out that were really important this time. Now this time, these 3 guys. So it's like, the chances are you're more likely to see the same healthy people or the same unhealthy people in a 9-day stretch. And
you can do stuff when it's very top of mind.
Right,
so
exactly.
I think that's something that could be really valuable for them.
Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go hang out with over 25,000 subscribers to the channel. Thanks again for making Locked On Lakers your first listen today. Please go check out the Locked On NBA podcast where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description so you don't have to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will see everybody on Monday. Have a great weekend.